Hi there, strikers. There's something uniquely disturbing about people vanishing into thin air. Read about these incredibly strange, unsolved cases. Although these disappearances span centuries, locations, age ranges, and circumstances, there's one common thread shared between them: a lack of closure. There are theories, speculations, and investigations, but never a decisive answer. On our incoming episode, I'm going to feature some of the cases of mysterious disappearances, of some missing that just disappear without any trace. After watching the first part, here is the last part of the disappearance of Mitch Weiser and Bonnie Bickwit II. Years later, when Mitch's family moved to Arizona, they paid to list their new phone number in the Brooklyn telephone directory in case their son was alive and ever wanted to reach out. 13 years following Bonnie and Mitch's disappearance, Mitch's dad Sydney received a collect call from someone identifying herself as Bonnie. But the caller abruptly hung up after he greeted her, and she has yet to be identified. Sydney blamed himself for being too enthusiastic and scaring the caller off, but likely it was just a heartless prank. Despite all of this, Bonnie and Mitch's loved ones have always been adamant the pair did not run away. At most, their families thought they might have left to get married but would have returned by the end of the summer. They never would have abandoned their families and lives. On the flip side, a lot of the evidence suggests Mitch and Bonnie did not run off. Mitch was very excited to take his driver's test, which was booked for shortly after he disappeared. Also, when he went to pick up the concert ticket for Bonnie from his friend, Larry, as he was leaving, Mitch said, "See you Monday," indicating he was planning to return soon. And both Mitch and Bonnie left paychecks behind and never used their social security numbers, which leaves one to wonder how they financed their new life. Also, Bonnie was extremely worried about her father. He suffered from a degenerative neurological disorder, and those who knew her thought it was highly unlikely she would cut ties and never check in on him. As time passed and no one heard from Mitch or Bonnie, the authorities finally started to wonder if something terrible had happened to the young couple. Police received an interesting lead in the case in the fall of 2000 after the MSNBC TV show Missing Persons did a segment on the missing teens. Alan Smith, then 24 years of age, told authorities he had seen Bonnie and Mitch drowned while they were making their way home from Watkins Glen. Alan said he hitched a ride home the day after the concert in an orange Volkswagen van with Pennsylvania license plates. When he entered the vehicle, two other hitchhikers were already there, Bonnie and Mitch. Alan said although he never knew the two teenagers' names, he overheard them discussing the young woman's job at a summer camp and recognized both of them from their clothing and descriptions. According to Alan, the group took a break from the drive to cool off with a quick dip in a river. While Bonnie was swimming, she started to drown and Mitch jumped in to save her. However, they both were swept away by river currents. The driver of the van told Alan he would call police and report the incident once he got to a gas station, but this call was never logged and the driver has never been found. Authorities at first found Alan's account credible, but then they started to wonder why he did not attempt to rescue Mitch and Bonnie given the fact he was an athletic Navy veteran. Moreover, Alan could not remember the location of the river where Mitch and Bonnie were said to have drowned even when police took him back to the area. Also, the odds of one body not turning up after a drowning incident is plausible, but to have both bodies never be found seems more unlikely. So if Bonnie and Mitch did not run off or die in an accident, could they have been murdered? Robert Garreau, an American serial killer active in New York in the early 1970s, could be responsible for Bonnie and Mitch's disappearance. In 1961, Garreau was jailed for rape. 6 years later, he was released on good behavior after serving only a little more than a quarter of his 20-year sentence. Then, in July of 1973, he went on a killing spree. On July 11, Garreau raped and killed 16-year-old Alicia Hawke in Syracuse. 3 days later, he murdered Daniel Porter, 23, and Susan Petts, 20, in Weavertown, Warren County. On July 29, 1973, he stabbed Philip Domoleski to death at a campsite in Wells, Hamilton County after tying him to a tree. 3 other intended victims somehow managed to escape with their lives. In early August, Garreau was shot, wounded, and apprehended by a state forest ranger. Garreau received a 25-year-to-life prison sentence for his crimes. In early September 1978 he faked paralysis and was moved to the elderly and handicapped unit at Fishkill Correctional Facility where he escaped. 3 days later, Garreau was killed in a gunfight with authorities after shooting and wounding a corrections officer with a gun his son had smuggled into prison for him in a bucket of chicken. There is a small chance Garreau could have killed Mitch and Bonnie. His murder spree coincides with the time in which the couple vanished. And he was killing within roughly a 3-hour drive away from Watkins Glen. Moreover, he did not have any qualms about attacking and killing a couple, which is pretty rare as it is more difficult to control 2 people. From 1973 to 1978, 14 young people went missing from the region where Mitch and Bonnie disappeared. There is no way to know if all of these disappearances are connected, but if not Garreau, then another killer may have been at work in the area and killed Bonnie and Mitch. In 2016, authorities reportedly dug at Cuca Lake, roughly 18 miles west of Watkins Glen, after receiving a tip about Mitch and Bonnie's disappearance. They were likely searching for bodies, but they have not been very forthcoming with information, so it is difficult to know for sure. It has now been years since the search was done, and if bodies were found we would have heard by now. What do you think happened to Mitch and Bonnie? Bonnie and Mitch's families have been understandably upset that Sullivan County and New York City police did not take the disappearance of their loved ones seriously when they first vanished. Authorities failed to interview the couple's friends or the people they interacted with at the camp. Also, police did not enter Mitch and Bonnie's names into the FBI's national database of missing persons. Even more, the original case files were lost and they contained the only copies of Bonnie and Mitch's dental records, making it an uphill battle to ever identify their remains. All is not lost, though, as authorities have admitted many mistakes were made in the case and they are now fully committed to locating Bonnie and Mitch. And in 2000, Mitch's sister Susan found her brother's baby teeth, and perhaps they can be used for DNA purposes to rule in or out any remains that are found. For decades now, the Weiser and Bickwood families have searched for answers. But instead of receiving any semblance of closure, they remain stuck in a hellish limbo, wondering what happened to the extremely articulate, intelligent, and socially involved young couple who had their entire lives ahead of them and forever mourning what could have been.